The sewing procedure inside of Marvelous Design is fairly straightforward. I will be talking mainly about the free sewing mode, and in particular this M2N free sewing feature. The reason why I want to talk about this one in particular is because the segment sewing is a fairly straightforward operation that doesn't really require any explanation. One thing to note though is that segment sewing, just as free sewing, has the same M2N segment sewing mode. To illustrate some unique features to free sewing, I will be showing the hoodie example. I will be sewing the hood itself to the main body of the hoodie, and it's a, like I said, it's a fairly complex procedure. It's not anything extreme, but it's nonetheless pretty complex because we need to sew this one long line to 3 individual ones. And so to begin, I will go straight to the M2N free sewing mode. And this is exactly the same as holding Shift in previous versions of Marvelous when we needed to sew one line to several segments. What we needed to do was select the line and then hit or press Shift and then select whichever lines we wanted this segment to be sewn to. The problem with the Shift option, the Shift procedure, is that we needed to always hold the Shift key down, and so it was a little bit of a frustrating process, because sometimes you would just accidentally let go of Shift, and once you do that, the sewing is applied automatically. So this M2N free sewing mode it's exactly the same as Shift. It's just that this time around we don't need to hold the Shift. The procedure is more precise and more efficient. And to begin, I will select this line, this segment that I want to be sewn to those three garments right here. And so what I need to do is I need to go all the way through this line, click, and if you look at the cursor, the mouse icon, there's a little line saying press enter to complete M sewing. And what it means is that if I want to add extra segments and I want them to be sewn to a bunch of other segments, this is the time to do that. So for example, I can select this line, I can select this line, and if those are the segments that I want to be sewn to something else, only then do I press enter. And as you can see, nothing happens. It's the segments are still highlighted, but now I need to choose other segments for those lines to be sewn to. And it's the same procedure. You just click and drag, and if we're happy, we press enter again, and that's when the sewing is applied. The cool thing about it is that, like I said, we don't need to hold the Shift key. We can zoom out, we can zoom in, we can do pretty much whatever we want inside of the UI without destroying the sewing. And if for some reason we accidentally chose the wrong segment, instead of starting everything over, we can press either delete or backspace keys on the keyboard, and this will undo the selection of those segments. But I need to sew only this segment to 3 other ones. So again, I need to press enter, and then I will choose the right ones that I want to select. And then press enter. So now everything is sewn. The cool thing about free sewing is that if you want to create some custom sewing, meaning that you want either a specific length to be sewn to some other garment. This is there's this one little guide that helps you do that. So for example, if I wanted to sew this this region, just this line, somewhere here, if I click on this line, there's this little blue dot appears on the segment, and this dot indicates the length of the line that matches the length that we started with. So it's a really handy feature. It's it helps quite a bit when we have some, not necessarily custom sewing, but we have let's say on the hoodie we had a segment point that would split the line into two, and we just wanted this part to be sewn to other segment. And so the way to do that would be to select this line, then click here, and then we can see immediately where the line should end, and the sewing will snap to this dot. We can also edit our seams, and this is a very powerful feature. So for example, this is what we've done previously. This is how I sewn this the hoodie to the body, the main body and the main garments. As you can see, there's it's not correctly done. There's the position of some of the seams is not correct. And one way to do that, one way to fix that would be to delete the sewing and then do it again, from basically changing the order of the seams. But there's a really cool feature that is called unlink M to N sewing. So what we need to do is we need to press the edit sewing and then right click on this one seam that is split into many segments. So when we press that, when we right click on that segment and click unlink M to N sewing, what happens is that this one continuous seam gets broken down into parts. And after this is done, we can actually manually modify the position and the length of the seams. So for example, this one, the one in the middle, this seam is the one that I need to fix. It needs to go here instead of here. And so what I can do is I can click on the seam and then just drag it across the line. As you can see, it snaps to the border. And this is really cool. This is really handy, without destroying anything, without deleting anything, and then resewing everything again. I can simply move things out of the way and then do some kind of rearrangement. So with this seam out of the way, I will move the green one to here, and then I will bring this one to the middle. And as you can see, now everything fits perfectly. Using the same editing tool, we can change the length of the seams, not just their position. What we needed to do instead is not press on the seam itself, but on the beginnings and the ends, those little dots, those little points. And if we do that, we can change the length of a particular seam.
If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description.
Another feature inside of seam editing is the ability to add segment points to the end or to the beginning of the seam. This is helpful if we needed to change the length of the segment, if we needed to change the garment itself, but we wanted to preserve some seams in their position. So let me explain this by showing what I mean. For example, the length of this segment is 321.6 millimeters. If I wanted to change the garment, and if I wanted to move it, let's say like that, the size, the length changes. And if I check my seams, they change as well. They change accordingly to the movement that I just made. But if I don't want this to happen, if I, for example, wanted to maintain the length of this seam and the length of this seam, and I wanted to extend only this part, there's a fairly simple and easy way to do that. What we need to do is right-click on the seam that we want to preserve. There are two options. The first one is add point to the pattern on the start, and the second one is on the end. And to be able to tell which side is the beginning and which side of the seam is the end, we need to look at this little notch, this little line that indicates that this is the beginning of the seam. The point closest to this notch is going to be the beginning. So that's what I want to add the point. So right click and add point to pattern on the start. And what happens now? There's a segment point added to this region, and so if I needed to do this original modification, I will move this point out of the way, and obviously those two seams, they're going to maintain the length, and only this one is going to change. There is also a way to check how well the garments are constructed and how well the seams and the segments match each other. To do that quickly, we need to press this little icon with the magnifying glass next to the sewing machine. And what it does, it indicates in red what segments, what seams don't match. And there's also customization for this. We can change the length difference as well as ratio difference. And so in this case, I have the endings of the sleeves as well as the pocket of different size, and corresponding to that, we can see the lines are highlighted in red that don't match. But this is also handy for checking other things, for checking small things that might result in things that are not necessary, in certain folds and certain small wrinkles and noises and things like that. And to do that, to check for those things, we can simply lower the length difference. So if I go to 4 millimeters, the new lines are highlighted. If I go lower, there are a few other ones highlighted and now are in red. And if I check the length of those lines, we can see that this line is 278.3 and this one is 280.7. And so if I want things to look best, I need to match those lines together. I need to match the length of those lines. And so this feature is useful not for checking the seams themselves. It's useful for checking how well the garments are constructed, how well everything is holding up on the model. As for the seams themselves and their presentation in Marvelous Designer, there are a few things to keep in mind. If I select the seam in the property editor, now there are a few options to play around with. The first one I will talk about is 3D seam line. Unfortunately, this only applies to Marvelous Designer itself. What I mean by that is that anything that you do here is gonna stay within the program. By default, thickness is set to 0.1 or 0.5 or something like this, but I set it to 1 millimeter. And if I wanted my seams to represent how I want them to look, in the end, I can do it by simply changing the size, the thickness of the seams. And I need to change the intensity as well. The intensity will dictate whether the seam is going to go outwards or inwards. So negative will make them go outwards, and positive will make them go in. And this is a Marvelous Designer feature only. If you export your garments with those options, when you have the thickness set to something other than the default one, this will not translate into the exported geometry. This works only within Marvelous Designer. But it's a cool thing for presentation, to have seams look more believable rather than just flat surfaces. The other option is more practical, and it works exactly the same way as internal lines. So if we wanted the seam to behave in a different way and not be a flat connection, we can change fold angle. If we change it to, let's say, 20 and hit simulate, the seam now is sticking out. And if I do something that is beyond 180, the seam is now going inwards. And so if you're looking for something, in particular if you're looking for something unique and different in terms of your design and how you want the seams to behave, this is one way to do it. And the last thing to talk about is the seam line type. And there are two options for that. The first one is custom angle, and then there's the turned one. This is practical for things like this when we have, in this case, cuffs being rolled up, or if we were working on a shirt and we had a color of the formal shirt. This is a very handy feature. What it does, if we change it to turned, it makes this surface, this region right here where the bending happens when the geometry turns, it makes it more flat. It makes it more natural. So if I click turned and I simulate, this is what happens. It becomes more sharp. It basically removes this bulging, removes this roundness at the end where the folding happens. So again, this is useful and handy for things like this when something is rolled up, or for things like formal shirts